Welcome back. We're on the part where money stops being math and starts acting like psychology.
And the big theme here is simple. Spend for your life, not for strangers.
That line hurts because it is way too accurate.
The funny part is people think they are buying happiness, but they are often buying comparison.
Which is insane because most strangers are not even paying attention.
Exactly. Everyone is starring in their own tiny movie.
And your expensive car is a background prop in someone else's scene.
Right. And then you finance the prop and call it success.
That is such a brutal sentence, but it's basically the whole game.
I like that he keeps separating rich from wealthy, because that distinction matters a lot.
Yeah, rich as you can buy stuff, wealthy as you can breathe.
That is a very good shorthand, honestly.
He is basically saying wealth is freedom, not flash.
And freedom can be surprisingly small at first.
Like saving $20 and feeling like you bought a little more control?
Exactly. A dollar saved is a dollar of future that you own.
That sounds nerdy until your life gets messy, then it sounds genius.
Debt flips that completely, because now your future belongs to somebody else.
That line is scary, but it is also why people stay stuck.
And the scary part is how normal it feels while you're doing it.
Oh, it's just a sweater until it becomes a monthly obligation.
Exactly. The sweater was a vibe for one afternoon, and the bill was a relationship.
That's the best anti-credit card argument I've ever heard.
What I liked most was the independence angle, because that reframes saving instantly.
He is not saving for a yacht, he's saving for options.
Options, sleep, flexibility, dignity, all of it.
Dignity is a wildly underrated asset class.
It should be listed on the exchange.
He even makes the case that a billionaire can be less free than a broke person.
Because money is not the same thing as autonomy.
That one feels almost offensive until you think about it.
Think about the person who owns everything but answers to everyone.
That's not wealth, that's a very expensive cage.
And the cage can look beautiful from the outside.
The compound interest section was the other huge thing, because patience beats genius over time.
Yes, and people hate that answer because it's not glamorous.
Nobody wants the secret to be boring and consistent.
But boring is powerful when it repeats for 30 or 40 years.
His parents doing monthly investing for decades is such a strong example.
They did not need special information. They needed staying power.
So basically, the superpower is not panicking every time the market sneezes.
That is a very elegant way to put it.
And he keeps saying the price of investing success is volatility.
Right. If you want the upside, you pay in uncertainty.
Which is annoying, because certainty feels so comforting.
But certainty usually pays you less.
Like a savings account that politely respects your anxiety.
Exactly. It will not thrill you, but it will not betray you either.
I do respect that he says not everyone should maximize stock exposure.
Because maximizing returns is not the same as maximizing peace.
That is a big one because people act like the highest return is always the win.
If you are awake at 2 in the morning panicking, the spreadsheet is lying to you emotionally.
The spreadsheet might be up, but your nervous system is down.
And that matters more than people admit.
I also love the part about expectations because that is where a lot of suffering lives.
Absolutely. Half of misery is a gap between reality and expectation.
If you expect a house at 28, renting feels like failure.
If you expect patience, renting can just be a season.
That's the difference right there.
And it changes the whole emotional temperature of your life.
Nobody says I am deeply fulfilled by my humble emergency fund, but maybe they should.
They should put that on a mug somewhere.
What I keep coming back to is how he asks, what are you maximizing for?
That's the cleanest question in the entire conversation.
Because if you're maximizing applause, you'll buy very differently.
And if you're maximizing stability, you'll probably look boring to other people.
Boring is just secure wearing glasses.
You really are committed to the one-liners today.
Somebody has to make savings sound sexy.
The deeper truth is that money is a tool for a better life, not a scoreboard.
And once you see that, a lot of the pressure starts looking fake.
Fake, but very profitable for the people selling the fantasy.
That is the dark little engine underneath a lot of consumer culture.
And yet most people still have to learn it the hard way.
Which is why this episode lands so well, because it is practical without being preachy.
Exactly. It gives people a way to think, not just a rule to obey.
All right, that feels like a good place to land it for now.
Yeah. Next time we should go deeper into how habits beat motivation.
Perfect, because motivation is noisy and habits are undefeated.
We'll see you in episode 3.
And we are getting into the part where money and behavior really collide. Welcome back. We're still in the money psychology rabbit hole, and this one gets way more personal.
We're talking status, independence, debt, and why saving is not actually boring.
Which is a dangerous sentence because finance people love calling everything boring.
They do. And then they wonder why nobody changes their behavior.
The wild part is how often spending is really just social theater.
That bucket idea is so sharp, because every purchase is either for life or for show.
And most of us are pretending it's for life while shopping for applause.
Exactly. And the applause is from strangers who are too busy panicking about themselves.
That valet story is brutal because nobody wants the driver. They want the image of being the driver.
That realization is almost offensive at first, because it punctures the whole fantasy.
Right, like, wait, you mean the Ferrari is getting attention, not my soul?
Your soul was never in the parking lot, Malik.
Fair, but it does explain why people keep buying expensive stuff and still feel empty.
Because the thing they bought is not the thing they actually wanted.
They wanted to feel admired, respected, maybe even safe.
And money can help with safety, but status is a terrible substitute.
The weird thing is, everybody knows that intellectually and still gets pulled in.
Knowledge is cheap here. Behavior is the expensive part.
That's the whole episode in one sentence, honestly.
And then he flips it into independence, which is where it gets really interesting.
Because independence is a flex. Nobody brags about enough.
It's a terrible Instagram post, which is probably why it matters.
Imagine the caption, bought $100 of peace and went home.
Not exactly sponsored content material.
But that idea is huge because saving stops being deprivation and starts being ownership.
Yes, every dollar saved is a little more future you control.
That framing is so much better than, please deny yourself this coffee.
Much better, and way less annoying.
It also explains why debt feels so toxic in his framework.
Debt is future time already spoken for, which is a very sobering way to think about it.
That line hits hard because a loan is not just money, it's your calendar getting claimed.
Exactly. And when you buy something on credit, the pleasure leaves faster than the bill.
The sweater gets 6 days of glory and the payment gets 6 months of commitment.
That is painfully accurate.
What I like is he doesn't moralize spending, he just asks what hole it's filling.
That question is almost therapist-level useful, because it forces honesty.
And most people do not want honesty when they're in a shopping mood.
No, they want a checkout button and a distraction.
Or they want to feel like the future version of themselves will magically be fine.
Which is how people end up financing comfort with anxiety.
The independence point gets even stronger when he talks about rich versus wealthy.
That distinction is one of the cleanest in the whole conversation.
Rich is income and spending power. Wealthy is optionality.
Yes, wealth is the ability to say no without your life collapsing.
And that's why a billionaire can still be trapped.
The Vanderbilt example makes that painfully obvious.
Born into absurd money and somehow living inside a prison of expectations.
They had status but not freedom, which is such a brutal trade.
And Anderson Cooper being the first one pushed to build his own path is almost the happiest plot twist.
It's like being forced into agency saved him.
Which is not how inheritance is supposed to work, but okay.
Not at all. But it says something about purpose.
I also think the spouse and family angle is underrated, because the people closest to you rarely care about your flexes.
They care if you are kind, stable, patient, and present.
So the Lamborghini is irrelevant and the emotional maturity is doing all the work.
Shockingly, yes.
That's where the episode gets almost uncomfortable because it asks what success is for.
Exactly. And if the answer is to beat other people, the game gets ugly fast.
Because there is no finish line to that game, only comparison and exhaustion.
And usually a graveyard of very rich people who are still miserable.
That part is almost depressing, but it's also clarifying.
Clarifying is the right word, because it reorders the whole hierarchy.
Then he moves into compounding, and suddenly patience becomes the actual superpower.
This is where the episode gets quietly electric, because the math is simple and the behavior is rare.
Quietly electric is a very finance podcast way to say fascinating.
I know, but it fits.
Compounding is just gains on gains, but the real trick is time.
Exactly. And Buffett's example is almost unfair because so much of his wealth came after 60.
99% after 60 is insane,
It's the ultimate patience flex.
which means the ordinary person is not competing on brilliance, just on staying power.
That's the empowering part, because consistency beats genius more often than people want to admit.
That should be on a wall in every brokerage office.
Right next to, please stop checking your portfolio every 12 minutes.
The story about the steady investor who was never top half in any one year is amazing.
Because it kills the myth that greatness has to look dramatic in the moment.
It's the same with his parents, honestly, just monthly investing and leaving it alone.
That boring discipline is what most people underestimate.
People want a secret, but the secret is basically showing up.
And not being impatient enough to ruin yourself.
The fear part matters too, because he doesn't pretend volatility is nothing.
He's saying the return is the reward, but the uncertainty is the toll you pay.
That is such a better way to phrase it than just stay invested.
Yes, because the emotional cost is real, and people need to know that up front.
And he's honest about sizing it to your personality, which I respect a lot.
Me too, because peace of mind is a legitimate financial target,
Not the sexiest target, but probably the most sustainable one.
especially if you have kids, a spouse, or just a low tolerance for chaos.
Which is most humans, honestly.
He also makes a strong point that wealth is a cushion, not a trophy.
And that cushion changes your whole nervous system, not just your account balance.
Exactly, it changes how you sleep, how you react, how you plan.
So the real asset is lower blood pressure.
Honestly, sometimes yes.
The advice for young people is almost aggressively practical. Know your balance, know your cash flow.
That's the first step, because most financial mistakes start with simple ignorance.
Not stupidity, just not looking.
And once you start looking every day, the story gets a lot less abstract.
10 seconds a day to avoid a lot of nonsense is a great trade.
It really is, because awareness creates options.
I also love the point about not rushing into a house too early.
Sometimes, the best financial decision is the one that preserves mobility.
Yes, because renting can be freedom when everybody else calls it failure.
That's the expectations piece, and it's huge.
If society tells you that you should own a house by a certain age, you start measuring yourself against a script.
And when the script is wrong for your life, you end up suffering for no reason.
That's the sneakiest part of money stress, honestly.
It's often not the money itself, it's the story around the money.
That's such a good place to land this part of the conversation.
Yeah, because the real work is changing the story before you change the numbers.
All right, we're not done because next episode gets into habits and the stuff people actually repeat.
And that's where this whole thing gets even more real.
Come back for episode 3 because we're going straight into habits beating motivation.
And we'll push even harder on how people change when nobody is watching.
Welcome back. We're still in the money psychology weeds, but this one gets sharper.
Today is really about independence, status, and why spending feels so personal.
Personal is right because people act like a car is a personality trait.
It's wild how often money is really just a costume for other people.
That valet story is crazy, though, because he saw the whole illusion from the parking lot.
The irony was brutal. He wanted to be the driver nobody was actually admiring.
So he wanted the attention people were not giving the attention. Classic human behavior.
Exactly. And that's why the comparison game is such a trap.
But people still swear the thing will make them happy, even when they know better.
Because in the moment, it feels like relief, not status.
That's the part I keep coming back to. What hole is the purchase trying to fill?
Most of the time, it's boredom, stress, or shame wearing a shopping bag.
That is a horrible sentence and also probably true.
And if it's on credit, The feeling lasts minutes, while the cost lasts months.
That's the brutal part of debt. It steals future peace for present dopamine.
It's not just borrowing money, it's outsourcing your future.
And saving is the reverse, right? You're buying yourself options.
Yes, you're literally buying independence $1 at a time.
That sounds way less sexy than buying a sports car, but way more useful.
Sexy usually has a payment plan attached to it.
That line should be on a billboard outside every mall in America.
The key is that savings feels small until life gets weird.
And life always gets weird. That's the thing nobody mentions loudly enough.
Exactly. And then the cash cushion becomes calm instead of dead money.
So the flex is not the thing, it's the ability to breathe?
That's the real flex, because independence beats display every time.
That sounds right, but people still want the room to feel impressed when they walk in.
Of course they do. But the room forgets you in 10 seconds.
Meanwhile, your spouse remembers whether you were kind all week.
Exactly. The people who matter are tracking character, not chrome.
That rich versus wealthy distinction is nasty because it flips everything.
Rich is spending power. Wealthy is unspent power.
So rich is the car. Wealthy is the part where you can keep the car if you want.
Pretty much. And wealthy includes the freedom to say no.
The Vanderbilt example is almost offensive in how miserable it sounds.
They had everything except the right to live like themselves.
Imagine inheriting a prison made of marble.
That's a perfect way to put it, because the money became a script.
And Anderson Cooper being the first one without the trust fund is the weird, happy ending.
The universe finally said, go build a life, not a consumption pattern.
That is such a savage gift, honestly.
It is, because effort can create identity in a way inheritance often never does.
Let's talk investing, though, because patience feels like the secret sauce nobody wants to hear.
It's boring, which is exactly why it works.
And compounding is basically magic for people who can leave it alone.
Right, gains on gains over time, and the clock does the heavy lifting.
The Buffett example is almost unfair, though, because 99% after 60 is insane.
That number is ridiculous, and it proves time matters more than genius.
So most people don't need to be brilliant. They need to not sabotage themselves.
Exactly. Average behavior for a very long time beats excitement for a short time.
That is deeply unsexy advice, which is probably why it's useful.
The market rewards people who can be boring without panicking.
But what about fear, because some people are terrified of losing money?
Then the answer is not zero risk. It's the right amount of risk.
That's actually the whole game, figuring out what lets you sleep at night.
Yes, because a portfolio you cannot hold through a downturn is a bad portfolio.
I liked that he said he keeps enough cash and bonds to avoid 2 a.m. panic.
That's not cowardice, that's design.
Finally, a financial strategy that respects the nervous system.
Imagine that. Not every good decision needs to impress the spreadsheet.
The thing I keep noticing is how much of this comes back to expectations.
Absolutely. Because disappointment often starts as a bad forecast.
If you think you should own a house by 28, you'll feel behind forever.
And if you adjust the timeline, patience stops feeling like failure.
That's hard, though, because society is basically yelling deadline at everybody.
Society is a terrible coach and an even worse investor.
It really is. It sells status, then acts shocked when people get stressed.
The better question is always, what are you maximizing for?
Because if it's sleep, family, and freedom, the math changes completely.
And if it's applause, the math gets very expensive very fast.
Man, applause is the most overpriced asset class on earth.
Especially when the audience is strangers who are thinking about themselves.
That line is the whole episode, honestly.
It really is. Because money is just a tool until ego turns up.
All right, let's leave it there before we accidentally start buying a yacht.
Fair. And next episode, we're getting into the habits that actually make this stick.
Episode 3 is where we get practical and maybe a little ruthless.
And we're going straight at the stuff people do when nobody is watching.